Hello, juniors. I'm going to try to explain a few of these SAT missed questions. I'm going to do 5 today. I'll do 5 another day, so just give you a few to think about. So on the first question, it talks about someone buying a laptop here, and one thing I want to define before I start is I'm going to make X be the laptop original price. And just so you know, I'm working with a stylus on a iPad, and so if my writing's a little bit sloppy, I apologize. So it says the total amount she paid the cashier was P dollars, and so P is going to equal what she pays, and that includes, and it has a 20% discount. So with the discount, if 20% is discounted off, that means she's paying 0.8 of the original price. Then it says that the total amount she paid was P dollars, including the 8% sales tax. So if you think about when you pay a sales tax, you first have to pay 100%. So that's the original price of 100%. And then you add the 8% tax on. So you're really paying 108% of what you did. So I'm going to make that 1.08 of the 80% because we're going to pay 100% plus the 8% of the 80% she paid. So that's kind of what she paid. Now, you'll notice that this is the choice for C, but be careful when you finish reading the question. It says, which of the following represents the original price? So I actually wanted this equation to equal X. So it's going to be P divided by 1.08 times that 0.8. And this is my final answer, which is actually D. So the first question on our most missed questions, the answer is D. Moving on to question 2. They give us these equations. It says in the equation above, B and C represent the price per pound in dollars of beef and chicken. And the question is, what was the price per pound of beef when it was equal to the price per chicken? So we actually want B to be equal to C, which means we want 2.35 plus 0.25x to equal my 1.75 plus 0.40x. Now, if you're like me, I don't care to work with decimals, so I'm going to multiply my whole equation by 100 to get rid of them. That gives me 235 plus 25, plus 25x equals 175 plus 40x. So solving here, if I subtract 175 to the left, I'm left with 60. If I subtract 25x to the right, I'm left with 15x, and x equals 4. But remember, this is just finding that what x equals. So if I want to find the price of per pound of beef when these were equal, I'm going to plug it back into my B. And so when I plug in that 4 there, 4 times a quarter there is going to just be 1. So my final answer on this one is $3.35, which again is D. Moving on to the third question here. I have triangle ABC and the measure of B is 90. So I'm just going to draw myself a quick picture to kind of organize, put my A and my C here. It tells me BC is 16, that's one of the legs. AC is 20, that is the hypotenuse. And it says I have triangle DEF, which is similar. Remember, with similar triangles, they have congruent angles. So again, I'm going to have that 90 and similar sides or proportional sides. So DEF corresponds with ABC respectively. So if I went ABC, I'm going to need to do DEF over here. And it says every side of DEF is a third of the length of the corresponding side of this. So this would be like a third of 20. This is going to be a third of 16. That's what it's telling us. So we know it's smaller. My picture, of course, is already not to scale. But the final question says, what is the sine of F? Okay, well, we know that sine, anytime you do it, is opposite over hypotenuse. And because my triangles are similar, this angle F and angle C will actually be the exact same value because those angles are congruent. So instead of doing sine of F, I'm going to do sine of C because it's equal to the sine of F. And opposite of C, well, I have a triangle over here. You can use Pythagorean theorem to figure out that missing side. Losing my pen here. Don't know what's happening. Okay, we're just going to cross off that. Or if you think of it, I'm thinking of my special triangle 3, 4, 5. If I multiply 5 times 4, I get 20. If I multiply 4 times 4, I get 16. So if I multiply 3 times 4, I get 12. So it looks like my missing leg is 12. You can always use a squared, b squared, c squared to also find that. So C, opposite is 12. Hypotenuse is 20. Now, unfortunately, we don't have enough spaces on our short answers to be able to fit 12 over 20. So we do need to reduce that, divided by 4 maybe, and get 3 over 5. And this is going to be my final answer. I can bubble in 3 over 5 on my short answer. I could also make it 0.6 because it's exact. So I could do either one of those for my final answer for this one. Moving on to question 4. It says if 6 is less than the absolute value of x minus 3 is less than 7 and x is less than 0. This is super important to know that means that we're dealing with some negative numbers. What is one possible value for the absolute value of x? And notice again, this is a short answer. So we have lots of numbers we could plug in here. So different ways to think about this. Absolute value, some number that's between 6 and 7. Okay, so if my x has to be negative, so I'm looking for negative values that when I join them to negative 3, I'm between 6 and 7. So obviously negative 3 would work to make it equal to 6, and negative 4 would work to make it equal to 7 if this was equal to's, okay? And remember, because we're going to take the absolute value. So any number between this negative 3 and negative 4 would work. But remember, when I plug it in, and especially because when this is short answer, it says somewhere between the absolute value of x. So which means whatever decimal I choose, let's say I choose negative 3.1 because that's between the two, I would actually have to bubble in 3.1. So any decimal between negative 3 and negative 4 will work for this one. And again, you can make it a 1-digit, 2-digit. Obviously, we run out of space after that, so we could only do that. But somewhere between the negative 3 and negative 4 range. And we could put any of those answers in. All right, the last one we're going to do today is if 3x minus y equals 12, what's the value of 8 to the x power over 2 to the y power? So some quick reminders as we worked with exponents. When I see this right here, I see that 8 and 2 could go to a common base. If I change 8 to 2 to base, 2 is my base, my power is 3 to the x over 2 to the y, I'm working with the same base, and that gives me a lot more options. When I work with the same base on these exponents, what really happens in this division problem is I keep the same base and I do 3x minus y. I subtract my powers. And what's nice here is in this question, 3x minus y appears over here as well. And so I can replace that with 12, and my problem's done. I didn't really have to do any more math than that. I just needed to know by power rules. So there's the first 5 explained. Hopefully I can get back to you soon to explain the rest.